We go about our daily lives hardly ever considering our final fate. Yet at every moment, we are surrounded by death. Around 60 people will die in the United Kingdom before the end of this program. We seldom witness death. Often, our only experience is from films and television, which can present it as a violent and painful event. We are reluctant to face up to our own mortality, to confront the truth that in the midst of life, we are in death. Better healthcare combined with better nutrition and cleaner water mean that we now live twice as long as we did 100 years ago. We are more likely to die from the diseases of old age, such as cancer, stroke, and the #1 killer, heart disease. Today, heart disease kills 1/4 of the population in the Western world. The most violent form is the heart attack.
Unfortunately, the monetary system allows many theories to be spread about such a topic, sometimes without any evidence, and in addition to that, it doesn't educate people on such an important subject, possibly the most important. If you seek an answer to this question, you will come across all sorts of theories and ideas about life after death. But sadly, all are just ideas. The monetary system fails for this topic because it is not concerned with quality, only cares about what makes more profit. Often you'll find more spiritual and illusory answers than scientific ones. This occurs because people have the tendency to perpetuate and promote whatever is selling best, or whatever the environment offers, not what is relevant. This is the truth about death, the truth discovered by science until now. From roasted chicken, fried potatoes, Coca-Cola, and food from McDonald's, almost everything that you eat transforms your body. That, plus the oxygen you breathe.
In digestion, food is changed by the organs into a soluble form to be absorbed by the body. Food in the mouth is mixed with saliva. Saliva begins to dissolve the food as the teeth grind and cut it. Food is forced back into the throat, pharynx, by the tongue. Food in the pharynx stimulates the swallowing reflex. The larynx is pulled upward to meet the epiglottis and seal off the trachea. Food goes from the pharynx to the esophagus. Food moves down the esophagus by peristalsis. The peristaltic wave reaches the esophageal sphincter and food enters the stomach. The unique muscular structure of the stomach breaks up the food into small pieces called chyme. Chyme exits through the pyloric sphincter into the duodenum of the small intestine. The major portion of absorption and digestion occurs in the small intestine. The mucosa secrete enzymes that supplement the digestive enzymes of the pancreas and liver. This completes the chemical process of digestion. The walls are covered with villi where nutrient absorption takes place. The structure of each villus contains a capillary and lacteal to pick up the digested nutrients. The nutrients are now transported by the blood to all the cells of the body. The undigested food reaches the ileocecal valve and enters the large intestine or colon. The colon absorbs water, manufactures vitamins, produces mucus, and forms and expels feces. Mass peristalsis pushes the feces into the rectum, which stimulates the defecation reflex.
The same happens with the fetus that breathes and feeds through his mother.
not surprised, not everything lasts. I've broken my heart so many times I stopped keeping track. Talk myself in, I talk myself out. I get all worked up, then I let myself down. I tried so very hard not to lose it. I came up with a million excuses. I thought of every possibility. And I know someday that it'll all turn out. You'll make me work so we can work to work it out. And I promise you, kid, that I'll give so much more than I get. I just haven't met you yet. I might have to wait, I'll never give up. I guess it's half timing and the other half's luck. Wherever you are, whenever it's right, you'll come out of nowhere and into my life. And I know that we can be so amazing. And baby, your love is gonna change me. And now I can see every possibility. Somehow I know that it'll all turn out. You'll make me work so we can work to work it out. And I promise you, kid, I'll give so much more than I get. I just haven't met you yet. They say all's fair in love and war, but I won't need to fight it. We'll get it right. We'll be united. And I know that we can be so amazing. And being in your life is gonna change me. And now I can see every single possibility. And someday I know it'll all turn out. And I'll work to work it out. Promise you, kid, I'll give more than I get, than I get, than I get, than I get. Oh, you know it'll all turn out. And you'll make me work so we can work to work it out. And I promise you, kid, to give so much more than I get. Yeah, I just haven't met you yet. I just haven't met you yet. Oh, I promise you, kid, to give so much more than I get. I just haven't met you yet. So birthday, yeah. I just haven't met you yet.
Now, to better understand, take this child and put him into a glass box, and give him food and oxygen until the age of 18. You'll notice how he is transforming miraculously. Basically, almost everything that you gave him is transforming into his body. This is how he looked before. This is how he will look after 18 years. This is what happens when you grow. Practically, you are a transformation. But what happens when you die?
Death seems an entirely cruel and negative event, bringing loss and bereavement. Yet from the very start, there is a fundamental link between life and death in our bodies. Our bodies are built from organized colonies of cells. In fact, what we see when we look at ourselves are vast communities of cells, billions of them. Each one plays a particular role: a heart cell, a muscle cell, a brain cell. In an incredible act of harmony and organization, they work together, performing the functions of the organ they belong to. From the very start of our lives, this tireless dedication to duty often requires our cells to die. Some cells in the fetus actually receive signals to self-destruct. Here, the developing hand grows as an enormous bundle of cells. Then cells are systematically destroyed, sculpting the fingers and the gaps between, in much the same way a sculptor chips away a block of stone. From the very beginning of the human body's journey, death becomes an essential part of life. Under the microscope, we can see how cells are destroyed. This process continues throughout our lives as cells become damaged or just worn out. During the course of this program, around 1 billion cells in your body will die. This programmed cell death keeps us healthy and alive. In this way, we can think of death as part of the creative force of life. But do our own deaths play a part in the larger human story? Are we like cells in some cosmic machine, our death serving a greater unseen purpose? Well, sadly not. It seems that death is the price we pay for having sex. When we have sex, we can create new life. But we do not just produce copies of ourselves. Each one of these babies is unique, the result of the particular mix of their parents' genes. Through evolution, winning combinations of genes get passed on from generation to generation. This process, which we call natural selection, has speeded up our ability to adapt and evolve. Without sex and the mixing of genes, we would never have evolved into such complex organisms. The processes of death in the human body are remarkable. This is what it would look like if you could see the human body cool down over 24 hours. Death comes not as a single quick event, but a slow winding down. It is difficult to say when every cell in the body ceases to have life. Long before we stop breathing, our brain may die, our personality lost forever. When someone dies, we miss all the things which make them human. Their personality, their unique identity, their emotion and warmth. What is that sense of being, that consciousness which goes? And is there a place in our brain where it can be found? In this experiment, we will be able to see the brain at work. 128 sensors pick up tiny electrical signals emitted as my brain cells fire. This is the pattern produced when I am relaxed. All this activity is simply the result of doing nothing. As soon as I open my eyes, the brain leaps into action. Even the simple task of watching television involves my brain in millions of actions. A single second, stretched into 1,000 steps, shows swirls of activity sweeping all over my head. First, the information travels to the back of my brain. From there, the activity moves through the short-term memory areas and then to the front of the brain, the part actually involved in thinking. The question is, can we find a single part of the brain that gives me my sense of myself, that makes me Robert Winston? Well, it seems that the brain is just a bit more complicated than that. In fact, it appears to work something like an orchestra. There are areas that do different things. The string section, the conductor, the brass players. But the output, the music if you like, isn't just about the areas that work, but about the order that they work in. Just as an orchestra can produce an infinite variety of music depending on which instruments play and when, so too, the brain can produce limitless results depending on the sequence in which the clusters of brain cells connect. But the brain has more than 100 musicians making music. If you counted the connections between cells just on the surface, it would take you 32 million years. This sheer complexity leads scientists to believe it is our brain taken as a whole that creates our conscious self, the self we lose when we die. This is a heart bypass operation.
Thank you.
While the heart is not moving, the surgeon can reroute blood vessels to parts of the heart muscle where clogged arteries are restricting the flow.
Another stitch, please. Very kindly,
The bizarre thing is that if I saw somebody in this condition outside the operating theatre, I'd think they were dead. He's no pulse, he's not breathing, and the heart's not beating at all.
Yet, in a short time, this patient will be awake and chatting with his family and friends. These days, we can't decide that a person is dead just by seeing if their heart has stopped. Instead, we look to the brain and to one vital part, the brainstem. Buried at the back of the head, the brainstem is a relic of our ancient past. Millions of years ago, this was all the brain our distant ancestors had. They were primitive creatures. In fact, it is still called the reptile brain. Evolution has buried it under layers of a more complex brain, but it is still the foundation of life. It controls our most basic functions, keeping our heart beating, breathing, regulating blood pressure, and the body's temperature. That's why, when the brainstem dies, doctors can be certain that a patient is clinically dead. We find it hard to contemplate our own deaths, to imagine that one day we will no longer live in this world. But there is a way in which our bodies continue after we die. The cells in our bodies are made up of atoms which have existed since the start of the universe. They are constantly being exchanged and recycled. So what today are our bodies were once parts of plants, animals, trees, indeed other humans. And in the future, well, this journey that each of us takes from birth to death is just one tiny step in a much bigger journey, part of an endless repeating cycle from life to death.
Worms will gain weight, plants will grow, your body will turn into other elements of nature. That's the reality. Think about a man eaten by lions. What happens with his body? The same with a chicken eaten by you. It's just like any food. The human body will go into the structure and the development of lions. In fact, this form, the human being, dies because everything is metamorphosing. What happens after death is what we observe, and if you feel there is something more than that, think about the origin of those thoughts. What motivates them? And if there are any facts that support your claim. We can create billions of scenarios about what happens after death, but it's pointless. We need to take responsibility for what we discover. Humans are part of the universe. We represent a transformation in nature. Our bodies are a collection of atoms that work together to form a specific entity. These atoms can be arranged in different ways to form everything we currently know. From stars to grass, from the universe to microorganisms. A human being is a collection of atoms arranged in a particular way. We can define the human species as a pattern of arranging atoms. Thus, our individuality is actually represented by electrical signals in our brain, signals that can be created, modified, and removed.
We can never know what it's like to die. But some people have come very close to death only to revive at the final moment to tell the tale. Their near-death experiences might offer some insight into what happens in the dying brain.
I was in a motorcycle accident in which I suffered a fractured skull and numerous broken bones in my head. I said, God, if you're out there, because I was kind of an agnostic, you can have me now because I'm finished. I can't go on. And it was at that point that I felt myself separating from my body and entering into the near-death experience.
I became aware that I was in a tunnel. There's no other way of describing it. You couldn't see it, you could sense it. And then down in the distance, I could see this little speck of light, which gradually got bigger and bigger, as it would if you were in a tunnel. There's light at the end of it.
We traveled at some great speed and distance through the tunnel, and everything that ever was, is, and will be were contained in this radiance.
Nearly all who have come close to death give the same accounts of out-of-body sensations and tunnels of light. Similar experiences are also reported by fighter pilots when, subjected to massive acceleration, they lose consciousness.
Videotapes are on. Platform and gondola have been secured. Roger. Flight deck is manned and ready.
This is the world's largest centrifuge. It is used to investigate the effects of high G-forces on pilots. Subjects can be spun so fast that the blood drains from their brain and they black out.
Okay, the run will begin on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
We feel like our investigation of loss of consciousness is about as close as you can get to investigating that next state, which is death.
As the subject enters G-lock, gravity-induced loss of consciousness, their experiences are recorded.
I can't get those damn things. Okay, sir, light loss.
Shit, I don't know where I am.
The sensations that we have associated with blackout nearly always include a tunneling of the vision down to a central point where you just have light ahead of you.
So why do extreme G-forces and near-death experiences produce the effect of seeing tunnels of light? While the brain is starved of oxygen, neurons which deal with vision fire at random. This creates the sensation of bright light. As there are more neurons devoted to the center of our visual field and less at the edges, the light appears to be brightest in the center, creating a tunnel effect.
Had I had the choice, I would never have wanted to leave. This was just so perfect, so wonderful.
Can't describe it. It was just total love, happiness, bliss, knowledge.
3, 2, 1, pressure. Just ride, relax, get 100% on it.
I've had about 35 loss of conscious episodes.
There it is.
Nearly all of those have been such that they're very, very pleasant and almost give you a sense of euphoria.
The sensations of euphoria may be because the brain releases opiate-like substances to relieve the acute distress and pain. These produce hallucinations in the parts of the brain that deal with memories and emotions.
This research has certainly allowed me to have a much greater understanding and reduction in the amount of fear associated with losing consciousness and then dying.
Now, to show how far from reality most humans are, let's go through the following scenario. You wake up tomorrow in a building with 4 floors, 10 rooms. In the building, many objects, but also food. At first sight, it's impossible to exit the building. You have a bomb attached to your left hand, an intelligent one that will automatically inject a poison into the bloodstream that will kill you instantly. Trying to cut off your hand and stop blood flow from it will trigger it. Trying to remove it from your hand, it activates. On this bomb, there is a timer that shows how much time you have left. 2 more days, after which it will activate. In the building, there are 100 people in the same situation as you, but no one can see anyone else's time. They don't think about the situation too much. What are you doing? You walk through the building to see how it is. You get to know the people in the building. You look through the window. You see the landscapes and try to get out of the building. You write music. Poems. Will you imagine how the building would look like if those people would live more than 2 days? Would there be enough food for everyone? Would the building become crowded? Will you develop theories about the world after the bomb? What would you do? More than likely, most people would try to defuse the bomb, find ways not to die. Well, you're in a similar situation. Shocking, isn't it? You wake up tomorrow in a building with 4 floors, 10 rooms. In the building, many objects, but also food. At first sight, it's impossible to exit the building. You have a bomb attached to your left hand, an intelligent one that will automatically inject a poison into the bloodstream that will kill you instantly. Trying to cut off your hand and stop blood flow from it will trigger it. Try to remove it from your hand, it activates. On this bomb there is a timer that shows how much time you have left. 2 more days, after which it will activate. In the building there are 100 people in the same situation as you, but no one can see anyone else's time. They don't think about the situation too much. What are you doing? You walk through the building to see how it is. You get to know the people in the building. You look through the window. You see the landscapes and try to get out of the building. You write music. Poems. Will you imagine how the building would look like if those people would live more than 2 days? Would there be enough food for everyone? Would the building become crowded? Will you develop theories about the world after the bomb? What would you do? The problem is that you do not realise it because of the long time between the present and death. It's shocking, it's hilarious, it's amazing, and it's real. It is possible to realise it when you are approaching death. For example, the clock changes to show that you only have a few months left to live. And it's very probable that, if you realise what death actually means, you will enjoy life more.
Mary Allen used to run the Royal Opera House. Now she spends most of her day gardening and trying to write a novel.
No, I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, leave the house at 5:30, get to my desk at 6. Then I'd have 3 hours before anybody else turned up, when I could do my reading and my thinking and my writing. From 9 o'clock through till 7, I had meetings. And then at 7 o'clock, I'd have to go out either to a performance or a dinner or some kind of function.
Did you get a chance to look at the flowers?
Occasionally, fleetingly, very, very fleetingly.
But on the whole, what were you mostly taken up with?
Just keeping the whole thing on the road. I remember in February '97 thinking, I can't carry on doing this much longer because I feel terribly empty. You know, what do I do with my life? I think about arts funding, arts politics, a bit of art if I'm lucky. I've got nothing else in my head, I've got nothing else I can talk about.
In 1999, Mary was diagnosed with breast cancer. She quit the high-flying career that had meant so much to her.
How did the thought of death change your values?
I think it makes you reassess everything almost instantly and overnight. I think one of the most important things to me was realising that through all those years when I'd been at the Arts Council and the Royal Opera House, I'd hoped that my friends would wait and wouldn't mind the fact that I wasn't spending too much time with them, but I'd always assumed that time, if not infinite, there was a reasonable amount of it. And that one of the most important things for me then was to just spend far more time and energy and make much more of a commitment to personal relationships. So that's my husband, my family, friendships.
And what started to matter less?
Oh, work. Work suddenly had the status of nothing but providing you with the money to live.
Whereas before, what had it been for you?
Oh, beforehand, I think it had been a means through which I could achieve all kinds of subsidiary objectives, like feeling good about myself, intellectual stimulus, in fact, all kinds of things that I could have provided for myself through other ways.
We started filming Herbie a year after he learnt he had a fatal cancer.
The surgeon told Hannelore it's very bad. It's have the size, the tumor have a size from 2 soccer balls. You know, it's very big. And Hannelore asked him, what do you think, how long Herbie have to live? And he said to Hannelore, Hannelore said, how long, a half year or a year? He said, oh my God, never. A couple of months and it's finished. A couple of months ago, we created this small garden here. And I get from a good friend from Switzerland a couple of roses, plant them here, because when I'm dying, I get cremated, and Hannelore put these ashes afterwards around these roses, what you see here. This is my greatest wish and my will, where I want to be buried forever.
Okay, are you comfortable there, Herbie?
Yeah, that's okay, so.
Herbie, together with Hannelore, has decided to let us film the final moments of his life.
I know I never see this film in my lifetime.
No, it has, as I say, it has filled out a little bit more here on top, hasn't it, over the last week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that everybody see that a human being can manage an illness like my illness. And everybody can see in this film there is a way to make the best from your end of your life. The hospice worker and I, we talk very close together and we trust each other. When I ask her, what is happened when I go to die? I have to die. And she said, Herbie, you don't have to be worried about it. You die painless and in peace.
This is the little one with the socks.
And I'm not worried about when I die. It's tomorrow, today, or in a couple of months. I know what's coming, and I face it.
Hi, Herbie.
Hello.
Look who's here.
Hello, Dr. Murphy.
Herbie, how are you?
Nice to see you.
Good to see you always.
Yeah.
I come out here to get cheered up.
Yeah, thank you.
Takes me away from ordinary patients. Any complaints?
The tumour in Herbie's body presses against vital organs such as the liver and kidneys.
That's good, Herbie. That's lovely. No change.
They keep our cells healthy by regulating the delicate chemical balances in the body.
No, just show me your pulse, Herbie. I think it's very important.
Yeah.
If these organs fail, the balance is lost and the body can no longer sustain life.
You have somebody coming to see you. Have you a visitor? Is your brother coming?
My brother's coming here tonight.
Tonight?
Yeah.
So that'll be fun.
Maybe the last time I see him.
Oh, I don't think so. No, I hope not. But
it goes. I feel it myself. It goes to the end now.
You know, you think that?
I feel it. Yeah.
And how do you? That doesn't worry you, on you?
No, it doesn't worry me. No,
yeah.
I know it.
I think you're extraordinary. You know you're extraordinary.
Sunday's his birthday.
Sunday is your
Sunday's
birthday?
my birthday on Sunday.
Oh, I didn't know that. So what age are you then?
63.
63.
Yeah.
Not a bad age.
Oh, I'm absolutely delighted. As I can see now the springtime. The season is changed now. The weather getting a little better. The sun coming out. I'm anywhere. I'm a man. I like the nature, you know, and the flowers, and the trees when they start to blooming now. But I never know what is tomorrow. Then the tumor in my belly is a time bomb. You know, a real time bomb. And I never know what is tomorrow. And I enjoy it now, every day. I believe when I'm dead, I'm dead. And that's it. There is not other life. There is nothing. When you are dying, you're gone forever. You can say dust to see dust. That's what's left. Nothing. A handful of ash is left.
Monday. was just a normal day. We had breakfast together and just like every day. When we went to sleep, it was everything normal. On a Tuesday morning, Herbie called me around 5 o'clock, and then he said to me, he was very heavy breathing and he was feeling very uncomfortable. And then he said to me, Hannelore, I think I died today. When I talk now to him, you think he can hear me?
Can.
Yeah?
The hearing is the last thing to go.
Yeah.
Even when they cannot speak.
Yeah.
That's why it is so important never to say anything that you wouldn't say if they were in their full senses, because they can. People who have recovered from being at death's door have told how they heard every single thing that was said. Yeah. It's most important never to, you know.
Alles klar? Mother? Alles klar? Ja? Ja. Genau. So machen wir es. Ja, da freust du dich. Ja.
Herbie wants something. He's reaching there for the holder.
In the final hours, Herbie receives visits from friends. Brendan and his young daughter Orla come to see him for the last time.
Let's put those into Herbie's hand and hold his hand, because he's lovely and warm. And if I was loaded with morphine, I think I'd be pretty warm too. Herbie hasn't got long for this world, I suppose.
But he can hear you when you speak to him.
He's been preparing for this for a long time.
Sing him the song from the Hedda. We're going all to the mountains.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah, please.
You know the chorus? Will you go, lassie, go? Okay. Oh, the summertime is coming, and the leaves are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme grows around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pluck wild mountain thyme all around the bloomin' heather. Will you go, lassie, go? Last time I walked in here, I did the same. I'm not going to be deprived now. Herbie, take care.
Hello, Dr. Murphy. It's Peggy, the nurse with the hospice. I'm with Herbie at the moment. I just arrived. He's very, very rattly at the moment. And I rang Mary Fearick and she said to give him 10 of Midazolam.
By morning, Herbie's breathing becomes increasingly noisy. This is a very common condition. It doesn't trouble Herbie and is easily helped by medication.
I don't think he has pain. It's
No, it's not pain. It's only this rattling
Yeah.
and this shaking.
Shaking, yeah.
It just came.
Just started today, this morning.
No,
Just
just
before
when-
I came in.
Before you came
Yeah.
in. He was shaking like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this normal?
What happens, it does, yeah. It does happen.
Gleich ist vorbei. Hier. Oh, gleich ist vorbei. Habi? Ich bin bei dir. Gell? Gleich ist es vorbei. Gleich ist es vorbei. Ja. Rosalie. Sei tapfer. Ja. Now you're in peace. Now you're in peace. Yeah. Now you're in peace.
Mary, Herbie's just died. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Cause of death is this inoperable huge cancer that he had, retroperitoneal liposarcoma. His heart gave away, and his lungs failed, and his liver failed, and his kidneys failed. General failure overall, due to the effect of the cancer over the last 1.5 years. It's extraordinary that he has lived so long.
So, komm, Angelika. Wir machen diesen Herbst.
Afterwards, when they laid him down, and he was so peaceful looking. He was really nice looking, and I couldn't cry. I couldn't cry. It was just a nice. For me, it was a relief. Herbie is now in peace, and everything is over for him. Not for me, but for him. I was happy for him.
Oh, the summertime is coming, and the leaves are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme grows around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pluck white mountain thyme all around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go?
Dear friends, it was Herbie's wish to read his epilogue before we spread the ashes around the roses. In 1981, my wife Hannelore and I decided to go to live in peace and harmony in Ireland.
I can look back on many fulfilling years together with her. And I thank her deeply for sharing her life with me. My wish is that all my friends and neighbors live together in peace, without jealousy and animosity. May you all hold me in good memory.
Oh, lassie, go sing it like Herbie would have, and we'll all go together to plug wild mountain thyme all around the bloomin' heather. Will you go, lassie, go? Will you go, lassie?
So they say we have eyes to see with. Now that makes sense to all normal people. You have eyes and you see if there's light, but you don't have eyes to see with. They think you have ears to hear with. No, you have ears and you hear. Some animals' ears turn in different directions toward the sound. There is no purpose to life. That's a hard thing to accept. People, ego, think a fresco is here to help make the world a better place. Well, that's pleasing to me, but I don't buy that shit. I know that nature has no purpose.
A guy named Spencer, a scientist, tried to describe what life was. He said life automatically adjusts. If it gets very hot, you sweat. That cools the body temperature. And if it gets cold, the body generates heat. You shiver. It generates heat by friction. So he said, that's what a living thing is. So a guy said to him, that's exactly what my refrigerator does. When it gets hot, it gets colder automatically. So no one ever really gave a good description of the difference between living and non-living things.
Death is often the result of a process we call aging.
Aging is a complex but natural process that affects every molecule, every cell, every organ, and ultimately your entire body functions. And although chronological aging is inevitable, unfortunately, unlocking the secrets to biological aging has perhaps been the ultimate scientific quest for many years. Most recently, scientific research is focused on the way our cells age and how aging impacts their function, reproduction, and ultimately the lifespan of our cells. This may help us to better understand the causes and ultimately the potential solutions for key age-related diseases such as heart disease and cancer. We've all known people who look old for their age. Clearly there are genetic factors involved there, lifestyle factors, nutritional factors that all affect how we age. But now much is known about these cellular processes that incorporate these various factors and lead to people aging slowly or more quickly. The first way we age is due to DNA damage. Our DNA is under continuous assault from ionizing radiation, from toxins in the environment, and even as a result of just the normal processes of metabolism. And up to 1 million DNA damaging assaults occur every single day. And these can result in genetic typos or mistakes in the DNA replication. Now, these mutations can accumulate over time, eventually causing cells to malfunction and even die prematurely. Our bodies, though, have repair mechanisms that take care of this DNA damage. However, defects in DNA repair seem to be directly related to the aging process. This critical balance between protecting the DNA from damage as well as repairing DNA is an ongoing area of active research. Another process that leads to aging as well as disease is the activation of genetic regulators, which are also known as transcription factors. These impact a multitude of metabolic processes in our bodies, including the dynamic balance between DNA damage and repair, also between energy production and decline, and control cell lifespan. Over time, the activity of these genetic regulators seems to decline and cumulative cell damage can occur. This cumulative damage contributes to age-related cellular deterioration and also contributes to many diseases of aging, including cancer, kidney failure, and even dementia. The third way that we age is related to cellular structures called mitochondria, which are the intracellular power plants that transform carbohydrates, fats, and proteins from the food that you eat into energy that your body can use. But free radicals are also generated in this process, which can lead to serious damage to your mitochondrial membranes as well as to DNA. This oxidative damage accumulates over time, leading to decreases in both the number of the mitochondria in our cells as well as their function, and can contribute to the development of many age-related diseases, including heart disease, arthritis, and Alzheimer's disease. As we age, our proteins and other structural molecules develop damaging crosslinks to one another through a process called glycation. Glucose molecules attach to proteins, forming what are called advanced glycation end products, also known as age proteins. The accumulation of these cross-linked damaged proteins are somewhat like plaque building up in your arteries, and they are tied to some of the most debilitating effects of aging. In fact, scientists are theorizing that these age proteins may play an important role in the development of atherosclerosis, as well as certain complications of diabetes and chronic kidney failure.
There are no really effective anti-aging medicines or pharmaceuticals available right now. The only things that really exist are things that may be of some benefit to people who are unusually susceptible to particular aspects of aging. People who, for example, might be coming down with type 2 diabetes in their 30s, or who might get heart disease in their 30s. That's unusually young, and if you are genetically susceptible so that might happen to you, then there are things that you can do that might stave that off and bring you closer to having an average age of onset of those problems, and therefore an average lifespan. But for people who have already by default got an average lifespan, let's say they're not going to die until the age of 80 or so, whatever happens, unless they get hit by a truck, then there really is nothing that can appreciably extend their lives. There are some misunderstandings in the popular press about the extent to which one's genetics affects one's longevity. And this is really because the comparisons that scientists make to put numbers on the importance of genes to longevity are not always well explained. So if we compare different human beings, then the typical number that people get is that about 25% of the difference between different people's longevity is explained by their genes. But in reality, virtually all of our longevity is determined by our genes, because it also explains the difference between our lifespan and the lifespan of mice or fruit flies or whatever. Ultimately, the reason they don't live so long is because they have different genes that have caused them to have a different body that ages less well and therefore ages more rapidly. At the moment, we have in the industrialized world an average lifespan that's something around twice what it was 100 or 120 years ago, which is a pretty respectable increase. And that's happened in two stages. In the first stage, from let's say 100 years ago until 50 years ago, most of the increase in average lifespan was due to very much fewer people dying in early life, especially in infancy. So, of course, if you measure average lifespan, what you're doing, you're including people who die at age 0. And there were an awful lot of people dying at age 0 100 or 150 years ago, and there are hardly any now in the industrialized world. But in the second phase, let's say in the past 50 years, that problem had already been solved, so we couldn't have any additional gain to speak of in life expectancy. But life expectancy has carried on going up, and therefore it's done so by slowing down the rate at which people die at older ages. Now, the reason for that is a good deal less clear than the reason for the decline in infant mortality that happened first. Of course, the infant mortality just declined because we started to understand things like hygiene and antibiotics and vaccines. What's happened in the more recent period, we really don't absolutely know what's going on. There are various factors that could be involved, like, for example, the fact that people don't smoke quite so much. There are various interesting factors to do with prenatal life. In other words, to do with how well the baby was actually fed through the bloodstream of the mother when before birth. There seems to be a good deal of correlation there. But these are still open questions. Aging kills people, and by and large it kills people really, really horribly. Furthermore, it kills an unbelievable number of people, roughly 100,000 people a day worldwide. Overall in the world, roughly 150,000 people die each day, and about 2/3 of them die of age-related causes, of causes that young people more or less never die of. In the industrialized world, it's more like 90% of people that die of age-related causes. And as I say, most of them die really horribly. Aging is very bad for you. Now, that means that it's really bizarre that one should actually ask the question, why should we defy aging? Because we all know that we should defy cancer and atherosclerosis and Alzheimer's and diabetes and so on. And there's no argument about it. People appreciate that these things are bad ideas, bad things, and it's our medical and social duty and humanitarian duty to put serious effort into developing effective ways to defeat these problems. Now, aging is simply the sum of all of those things, plus a few things that we don't call diseases, like, for example, decline of immune function and loss of muscle mass and gain of fat mass. But still, the same applies. It's just the sum of all of these aspects of aging that we already don't like. It's unclear whether we will completely have brought aging under control in 50 years, but I think that if we get good funding, especially for the early work that needs to be done on mice in the next 10 years, then there's a very good chance that we will be there. And if we can describe that as eternal youth, I suppose the only problem is with the word eternal, because it sort of implies that we won't even be hit by trucks and so on. But certainly we will be able, once we reach that point, to fend off the decline in health and vigor and vitality that currently accompanies aging. We will always have the possibility of dying from old age, even when these therapies exist, just as today we have the possibility of dying of polio or tuberculosis. But we will not have the necessity to die of old age, because these therapies will be able to postpone the accumulating molecular and cellular damage of aging indefinitely, just in the same way that classic cars do not actually die at all. They don't have a mortality rate. The only time a classic car dies, so to speak, is when its owners stop looking after it. The role of the government in working on combating aging has so far been very slight. And I think this is no surprise, because at the moment there is, of course, still a great deal of ambivalence in society with regard to whether defeating aging or even combating aging would be a good thing. People on the one hand know how horrible aging is, but on the other hand they have had to live with it for so many millennia through the whole of civilization that we've come to have a degree of irrationality about aging. And so it's not obvious that there are really any votes in combating aging at the moment, in spending taxpayers' money on it. And for that reason it's pretty tricky to get government to put serious money into it. At the moment, there are not nearly enough organisations out there supporting work to actually combat aging. The foundation that I run, the Methuselah Foundation, of which I'm the chairman and the chief science officer, is probably the main one that's really focusing on the development of future therapies that will really combat aging. There are, of course, plenty of studies going on around the world which are more indirectly focused on the eventual hopeful development of anti-aging therapies. Essentially all work within biogerontology, within the study of understanding aging, is with an eventual hope that understanding will lead us to be able to develop future therapies. But that's a much more indirect approach than the approach that the Methuselah Foundation is taking. Then, of course, there are people who sell existing products that really don't work very well at all yet, and who are interested in improving the efficacy of those products by finding better ways to do things. So there are some companies, for example, trying to find analogues of resveratrol that work much better than resveratrol, and some people think that those things might be effective against human aging.
Remove as many factors that can endanger the lives of human beings, focusing on individual health, and then dealing with aging. In a system like the monetary system, a solution for aging can't help the species, because it will have a price and only people with power will have access to it. Because our society is based on profit, this solution will become a business. Almost all the research done in this field is limited by the system itself, which is based on budgets. It's sad, but true. A progressive society, based on the evolution of the human race, would focus on education. A society where people would recognize themselves as equals, where people would understand that they rely on planetary resources. Such a society could nurture intelligence, where people would focus on solving the aging problem, or educating each other on the most important aspect of their existence. It's amazing how, for a species considered to be intelligent, its members don't address their most fatal problem, death. Humans not only ignore death, which is probably the most important aspect of their lives, but the majority of them don't even realize it is a problem. Why are we considered an intelligent species if we are still so ignorant?